Police car light PGA Tour rocked. Jordan Spieth's stunning Brian Rolapp revelation leaves golf world speechless. White medium star. The PGA Tour is entering one of the most important periods in its modern history, and Jordan Spieth has suddenly found himself right in the middle of the conversation. With Brian Rolapp preparing to become the next commissioner and the tour already moving toward a major competitive restructuring, Spieth's comments about Rolap have taken on a much bigger meaning. What initially looked like a simple endorsement of a new executive has become part of a much larger debate about where professional golf is heading, what the PGA Tour should become, and whether this new leadership can finally bring stability to a sport that has spent years divided by competing interests. The timing could hardly be more dramatic. Brian Rolapp was approved by the PGA Tour boards in June to become commissioner on January 1, 2027, replacing Jay Monahan. Rolap originally joined the tour as CEO in 2025 after spending more than 2 decades working in the NFL. His background is one of the biggest reasons the golf world has been watching him so closely. He comes from one of the most commercially powerful sports organizations in the world, and now he is being asked to help reshape professional golf at a moment when the sport is still dealing with the effects of the LIV Golf split, changing fan expectations, complicated schedules, and a growing demand for bigger and more meaningful events. And this is where Jordan Spieth becomes particularly important. Spieth is not simply another player commenting from the sidelines. He is one of the most recognizable stars of his generation, a former world number 1, a 3-time major champion, and someone who has been deeply involved in discussions about the future of the tour. When Spieth speaks positively about a new leader, people listen. And when those comments are connected to a potential transformation of the entire PGA Tour structure, the significance becomes even greater. When Rolap was first introduced, Spieth described him as an impressive addition and praised his background, even suggesting that bringing someone with his NFL experience into golf could be a major opportunity. That reaction matters because Rolap is not approaching the PGA Tour as someone who simply wants to make small adjustments. He has talked openly about building a stronger competitive model and has emphasized the importance of creating a tour that works better for players, fans, sponsors, and tournaments. During his major presentation ahead of the Players' Championship, Rolap outlined several themes that could shape the future, including larger and more consistent fields, more marquee events, changes to the schedule, bigger markets, and eventually a promotion and relegation system. Those ideas were not presented as finished details at the time, but they showed just how ambitious the new leadership was prepared to be. Spieth's support for that direction therefore becomes extremely interesting. One of the biggest questions surrounding the PGA Tour has always been whether players and executives can actually agree on the future. Professional golfers have different priorities. Established stars want elite competition and strong financial opportunities. Younger players need pathways to rise through the ranks. Tournament organizers want major stars. Sponsors want television exposure. Fans want recognizable players competing against each other more often. And the tour itself needs a structure that can balance all of those demands without creating another internal crisis. Rolap's vision appears to be aimed directly at that problem. The tour has now announced a 2-tier competitive structure that is scheduled to begin in 2028. The Championship Series is expected to feature approximately 120 players across a group of elite events, while a Challenger Series will create another level of competition and provide opportunities for players to earn promotion. The system is designed to introduce a more merit-based element into the tour, meaning performance can have a more direct impact on who remains at the highest level and who gets the opportunity to move upward. For some golf fans, that is exactly the type of change they have been waiting for. For others, it creates a completely new set of questions. What happens to established stars who struggle? How much protection should top players receive? How often should players move between levels? And will promotion and relegation actually make the regular season more meaningful? Those questions are impossible to ignore, especially after the tour confirmed that this new model will become part of its future. And Jordan Spieth's situation makes the conversation even more fascinating. Spieth remains one of the biggest names in golf, but his recent results have not matched the incredible standards he established earlier in his career. He has openly discussed his desire to rediscover the form that once made him one of the most dangerous players in the world. At the same time, he has talked about enjoying the game more and maintaining a healthier perspective after difficult years. That personal evolution gives his views on the tour extra weight because he understands both sides of the equation. He knows what it is like to be one of the biggest stars in the sport, but he also knows what it feels like to fight through inconsistent form. That became particularly relevant during the 2026 season. Spieth showed flashes of his old brilliance, including strong stretches of play and a number of competitive finishes, but consistency remained an issue. At the FedEx St. Jude Championship, he opened the week with a share of the lead before slipping over the weekend and ultimately finishing outside the top 50 in the FedEx Cup standings. That result ended his season and added another surprising chapter to his recent career. Yet none of that appears to have diminished his belief that the tour can improve. In fact, Spieth has repeatedly expressed confidence in the direction of the organization and in the potential of Rolap's leadership. Earlier in the year, he backed the idea of bringing major PGA Tour events into larger American cities and television markets. That aligns closely with Rolap's stated desire to evaluate larger markets and make the tour more compelling for a broader audience. This could become one of the most important parts of the entire transformation. Golf has an enormous audience, but the sport is often fragmented across different events, tours, media platforms, and markets. One of Rolap's challenges is figuring out how to turn that enormous interest into a more coherent product. The NFL background is relevant here because Rolap spent years working inside an organization built around national storytelling, television, major events, and centralized commercial strategy. Golf is obviously different, but the business lessons can still be valuable. The real test, however, will be execution. Having a bold plan is one thing. Convincing every stakeholder to accept it is another. The PGA Tour has already spent years attempting to navigate disagreements between players, executives, tournament organizers, sponsors, and outside tours. Rolap can introduce a new structure, but he cannot simply erase those tensions overnight. Even golf industry analysts have pointed out that the tour is a decentralized organization with many competing interests, making transformation considerably more complicated than it might appear from the outside. That is why Spieth's endorsement could be more important than people realize. Players need to trust the person leading them. If the stars believe Rolap understands what they need while also understanding what the broader sport requires, he could have a much easier time selling difficult changes. But if players begin to feel that the new structure threatens their positions, schedules, or earning potential, the support could disappear quickly. There is also the larger issue of LIV Golf. The divide between the PGA Tour and LIV changed professional golf permanently. Fans became accustomed to seeing stars compete on separate circuits, and many major storylines became focused on who was playing where instead of simply who was playing best. Rolap has inherited that complicated landscape. His challenge is not just improving the PGA Tour internally. It is helping professional golf become more compelling as a whole. That may explain why his approach has attracted so much attention. Rather than focusing only on individual tournaments, Rolap has been talking about the competitive model itself. He has suggested that the tour needs to think differently about how its season works, how players qualify, how fields are constructed, and how the biggest events are positioned. Those are structural questions, and structural questions can have consequences with an interesting NFL background. He is the man preparing to lead the PGA Tour into its next chapter. Jordan Spieth, meanwhile, remains one of the most recognizable voices among the players who will actually live with those changes. And if his confidence in Rolap proves justified, golf fans could eventually look back at this period as the moment the PGA Tour finally began to reinvent itself. For now, the debate is only getting louder. The new structure is coming, the leadership transition is approaching, and the expectations surrounding Brian Rolapp are enormous. Jordan Spieth has already made it clear that he sees serious potential in the new direction. Now the golf world is waiting to find out whether that optimism becomes reality. Because if Rolap delivers on even a portion of the transformation being discussed, the PGA Tour of the future could look almost nothing like the one fans know today.